This is Johnny and the Professor. Common sense in senseless time.
Earlier today, the group Project Veritas released a series of audio and video recordings it says were made by someone within CNN. Here's Jeff Zucker telling his employees that no matter what else is going on in the world, the impeachment of Donald Trump is nevertheless the only story that really matters.
We're moving towards impeachment. I mean, don't, we shouldn't pretend, this is going one way, and so all these moves are moves towards impeachment. So don't lose sight of what the big story is.
Listen as a CNN staffer explains that he and the rest of them know exactly what Jeff Zucker wants.
The impeachment stuff, there's new developments every day, more shoes drop, and it's like, there's just nothing we can do. If Zucker wants impeachment every single day to be the top story.
That's what he wants.
Yeah, he wants impeachment. So
above all else, honestly.
Above all else.
There's a lot of people who are out here trying to just do what they think is the best of journalistic integrity. And then you get on the 9 a.m. call, and big boss Jeff Zucker tells you what to do. And it's you have to, to a certain extent, you have to follow his verdict.
Johnny and the Professor. Common sense in senseless times.
I think it was disgraceful that the intelligence agencies allowed any information that turned out to be so false and fake. And that's something that Nazi Germany would have done and did do. I think it's a disgrace that information that was false and fake and never happened got released to the public. And as far as CNN going out of their way to build it up, it's a disgrace what took place. I'm not going to give you a question. You are fake news. Everybody back there, the fake news media.
CNN President Jeff Zucker actually ordered his reporters to get off real news and back to Russia because, hey, it's a cash cow.
This is Johnny and the Professor.
It's Johnny and the Professor.
Common sense for senseless times.
Where we talk politics, pop culture, and paparazzi. That's our topics today.
I'm Stephen Arms, Professor Stephen Arms, and he, of course, is Johnny Manson. And our guest today is Alonzo Rachael, or as he's called on the internet, just Zo. I remember watching one of your earlier videos dealing with calling the Democratic Party the party of slavery, back before anybody else that were talking about it and just coming on. I listened to your video and went, damn right.
These things definitely weren't taught in school, back in my day. That wasn't that long ago. But and I guess there's a redeeming value to all the school that I ditched because, I didn't get brainwashed by the left coast public school system. And, but yeah, when you had people like Walter Williams, Thomas Sowell, Rush Limbaugh was talking about it, he put that stuff out there. I'd catch people like David Barton. And it's wow, man, I'm not crazy. When I first heard these couple of people talking about it, and I heard a couple other people, and I was like, man, there's got to be a way to let more people know about this because you don't have liberals tuning in to Walter Williams and stuff like that. They're not, they'll make up their prejudices about their shows and their image and their philosophies and stuff like that, but they don't really listen. So I'm like, how can we do this to where it will actually be interesting to people? Because these people don't really listen to reason. You have to tap into their imagination. That's how they're being duped. That's how the left does it. They tap into their imagination
at an emotional level. Yeah.
Right. Emotion. Emotion. We're all emotional. I know conservatives like to say, liberals are driven by emotion. Conservatives are just as emotional, but the difference is that we have a sense of practicality, and we get very emotional about things that are practical. But the thing at the end of the day, liberals, they have these everything that they think it's academic, it's theory, and it's still based in their imagination of how things should work. And it just doesn't, but that's what they're driven by.
The aspect of being liberal is not necessarily a bad thing. A lot of liberals want fairness, they want kindness, but the problem is, you say, well, how are you going to get there? And they go, well, we're going to take all the rich people's money because that's a nice emotional reaction, rather than it maybe having to actually build a system, having to promote successful business because there's taxes and then there's money to do the things you need to do.
Yeah, it's a weird thing about liberals. It's like, okay, yeah, we need kindness, we need fairness, so we're going to be kind by being being mean to you. We're being fair by being unfair to you. It's like that's how they do things, and that's why liberalism, it just doesn't work. And I know liberalism has this connotation of being generous and kind and open-minded and stuff like that. But that's not the full scope of liberalism. That's why I so reject the word, especially when I hear conservatives saying, well, we're the classical liberals and stuff like that. I wholeheartedly reject that, because you have to look at the full scope of liberalism, especially classical liberalism, because you can't take that classical liberal standpoint and ignore where it goes. At the end of the day, what liberalism ends up is taking the liberties with somebody else's liberty, because liberalism doesn't like to be constrained by what it thinks, by what it concludes to be oppressive. It's always going to be subjective, and at the end of the day, liberalism will assume to take liberties with somebody else's rights because it feels entitled to.
Classical liberalism, if you're talking about what existed in the 1800s, is way different than what it is now. I was a professor of history, so I mean, modern. You're right. Modernism in the 20th century, everything from FDR on, you're on the spot. The original idea was, of course, is being free of the restrictions, the oppressions of the government, that you should always be skeptical of power, that your individual rights are actually as every bit as valuable as any of the rights of the collective. The classical liberal from the 1800s, but they don't exist. I could think of myself as a classical liberal from the 1800s, but from the 20th century, no. Not a chance.
Well, actually, classical liberalism can go even as far back as the Whittemore Party that was in the UK.
Yeah, you can go back to that. Yeah, but then that's 1700s. But I mean, it's a different. But the definition from the
classical liberalism has to run a course. You have to take the full scope of it. Classical liberalism itself, you can't just look at it in this one view. You have to overall take where it goes. And like when we look at Democrats today, when they call themselves liberals, yeah, they really are liberals, because they are the fulfillment of where liberalism goes. So classical liberalism itself, even back then, because classical liberalism was set in place because you had these basically when you had the powers that be that were using religion to make these oppressive policies. The classical liberal of the day is say, well, we need to be free from these. We need to look at our own designs and all that sort of stuff. And I get all that. The problem is that even but classical liberalism itself is going to take a course that assumes what liberty is. You can't really define what liberty is in classical liberalism. That's the problem, and it ends up oppressing other people.
Well, I mean, we can spend the whole show on this, and I think we probably should, because, I mean, we're talking about Enlightenment thinking. You can get Thomas Jefferson in there. We can get Hobbes. We can get Spinoza. We can get Erasmus. You can get Machiavelli when you're talking about how liberalism originally evolved into the classical liberal phase. But I'm thinking, I think we'll just go. I agree that let's just agree modern liberalism sucks.
Indeed, it does. Yeah.
So, Johnny, you have something? You kind of paused, and we kind of got in the middle and let poor Johnny out.
Oh no, I was just listening. I'm not as smart as you guys, so I'm just absorbing everything. So
Man, I'm here to learn.
So, Ken, well, I'll ask you. So, have you, as a conservative in the entertainment industry, I mean, because in your 20-pound Sledge, of course, is Zoe's band, and they're a Christian rock band, and they're a good Christian rock band. I generally, one of my problems a lot with Christian rock music is that it's boring. It's repetitive and it's boring. It's not that interesting. But I've listened to your music, and I find it's good music. It's good rock in addition to being having a Christian theme to it, which means there's nothing wrong with having both. But do you find you have problems breaking into the industry and dealing with people just because of a more conservative point of view?
The thing is that it shouldn't have been this hard. It's very difficult now. And I'll try to make this as brief as possible, man, because this is a thing that's been years in the making. It wasn't difficult because, like I said, the whole point was to be able to take the gospel in this instance, and not only the gospel, but a conservative perspective of the gospel, sticking to the script, man, not taking liberties with it, but just sticking to the script and put it in a way where people, it's more digestible, it's more relatable to people. The culture wants to rock out, man. The culture, they want something they can groove to. They want something that they can, sometimes even get lost in. You know what I mean? So, and that's why I wanted to, with 20-pound Sledge, yeah, let's do that. Where they just want to, they can get lost in music, and instead of putting a message on it that they become more receptive to, like the secular world does, put the gospel on it that they can be receptive to. And it was working. And unfortunately, the powers that be that run social media and the search engines, they caught wind of it and basically made me disappear.
Wow.
So now I can hardly reach anybody, and like I said, it was working. And when they saw it was working, they say, yeah, we got to put the brakes on this guy.
And I know because I have, like I said, I remember the problems you had with your original, your Zonation, your original YouTube channel, and then you did get. If I hadn't had a subscription to your channel, I would have probably lost track of you too, because I noticed it was hard to find you in search.
I myself, and others have been warning people about this for years. We can't just be in there. We can't play in their backyard and assume that they're not going to take their ball at some point. Or just yank the rug up from others, because everything that we're using, they own.
I hear more and more of Black Americans are waking up to the conservative message, conservative values. Do you find it difficult talking with other Black Americans that aren't enlightened yet, but you want to reach them and say, hey, you know what? This is why I think the way I do. Are they receptive? Or are they just no, get away from me?
It depends on the situation.
Yeah.
One-on-one, and as with a lot of people, it's usually easier. But when you're dealing with the herd mentality, and the herd mentality is anybody. That's Black culture, Asian culture, Hispanic, white, doesn't matter. Or just people in general.
Yeah.
So with the Black community, when you're talking to the group, nobody wants to step away from the group because they'll get ostracized.
Yeah.
They don't want to do that. Everybody's got to save face. So, that's one of the things that, conservatives, because they're often asking this question is, how do we reach the Black community? Well, you don't try to go in and try to convince them all at once. It doesn't work that way. Because, anyone who steps out, they're going to get called a sellout or Uncle Tom or Oreo and all that sort of stuff. And that's on a good day,
Wow.
because it can get ugly, really ugly. Blood drawing are ugly. If you step out of school, with this thinking. So, but if you're able to discuss one-on-one and just say, look, man, this is what it is, you'll get your questions and stuff like that. But you at the end of the day, a lot of times it's like, okay, I didn't think about it like that. I didn't know this, I didn't know that, and stuff like that. And more importantly, because there's a lot of anger, at least you're getting I know you're angry, but if you're going to be angry at the right people. And
right.
then not only just enough anger to say, well, okay, I'm walking away. You got to give them, an idea of something to walk toward. It's like, look, you don't want to be stuck here. You don't want to be shackled to this narrative. I know you desire freedom and all that sort of stuff. Well, this is what freedom actually looks like.
Yeah.
If you're as strong as you think you are, then it's worth the pursuit, because that's what we have the right to. We have the right to pursue happiness.
But not necessarily get it. We can pursue it, but it's not to be. It can't be given to us. If it's given to you, then you haven't earned it, and you have to be able to work for it. Freedom comes at a cost. I mean, the Civil War was the cost for freeing slaves was 600,000 Americans killed. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was the price of us stopping our stupidity and actually trying to treat our fellow man as we should.
Yeah, exactly.
I was going to say, do you produce your own records, I believe, because I think it's your company's what, Bronze Serpent?
Mm-hmm. Yep, Bronze Serpent Media. That's my production moniker, and under it, it's like I'm wanting to produce, various kinds of entertainment media. Music, teleplays, movies. Yeah.
That's from the Bronze Serpent, from the story of Moses, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah. Both, it's the Old Testament account, as reflected in the New Testament when in John 3:14-16,
right.
When it refers to Christ.
Yeah, that
like a serpent in the wilderness. Yeah.
I was just curious about. So you're trying to produce other type of media other than just your music. I've seen your hysteria videos that you've done, or the ones that a couple of those, the one that had the little evil Hillary Clinton doll and things like that. They were funny. Those are seriously funny videos. So what other projects are you working on?
Well, there's the Zoloft. That's the thing that I been most known for, is doing the Zoloft. There's also the Zopium Den, which is my online anti-fuddy-duddy Bible study. And like you were talking about, Sinisterbia. Sinisterbia is a parody. It's a little bit of a mixture of the Twilight Zone, Tales from the Dark Side, and man, the left they give us. I mean, they give us so much stuff, man. They give us so much absurdity to work with. It's a tragedy that we don't have like a comedy series or something like that. A bunch of them, not just one, but a bunch. It should be a whole bunch of them, man, to do that. And that's what Sinisterbia was. And Sinisterbia, the title of that was made by me taking two words, sinister, which actually means left.
Right.
and urban, the place that the left is trying to drag us into, this place called Sinisterbia. So that's me doing that. I wanted to try to keep that series going, and then of course there's my group, 20 Pound Sledge. Also working. I'd love to be able to produce sci-fi movies. I got a book that I put out that I would love to at least do a screen adaptation on, the Flood Chronicles. So stuff like that, man. And I want to build an army of artists, kingdom first artists who are prepared to put kingdom before craft and just make quality entertainment.
Most of the problem with dealing with the left today is that you have to be bold. I get angry, and I often say that I think the Republicans are a cowardly and superstitious lot, because all you have to do is call them a name and they run for cover. You need to stand up and fight for things that are correct. The left is trying to sculpt America into a socialist nation. I used to think, I'm being conspiracy theory when I'm thinking that, and I finally realized they've pretty much taken off the mask. I mean, a classic example is what's going on with this impeachment nonsense they're talking about right now.
That's an interesting choice of words, that they've taken off their mask, or should we say they've taken off their hoods?
Right.
Well, those are at least those who hold positions. They've taken off their hoods. Their drones in the streets have put on masks. But they've traded white masks for black ones. But as far as what's going on with these impeachment hearings, and I'm gonna get in trouble with you guys.
It's all right. We like trouble.
I'm gonna get in trouble with you because I'm gonna bring up classical liberalism again. I'm gonna give you an example of how far back classical liberalism goes. I'm gonna go take you guys into the woods a little bit, but I'm gonna try to bring it back as fast as possible.
All right.
But this is why I have issues with classical liberalism. Because when Christians, when they try to say that God is above politics and doesn't get involved, God doesn't do politics, I am like, that is absolutely not true. God is the ultimate policy writer. He's the first policy writer. And his policy is eternal. But one of the first policies that he threw down with is like, look here, this is a garden that I'm going to give to you, and you guys have the universe is your whole backyard. You can eat whatever you want to eat. You got a great health care plan, immortality. You know what I'm saying? It's much better than Obamacare, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you all this stuff, and I got one rule: do not eat from this tree. That is my policy to you. Here comes the devil, and the devil's got another policy, and his policy is that's oppression. He's actually trying to keep you down. You're not going to die. I got another policy for you. So basically what happened was that the devil himself introduced classical liberalism.
Ooh.
He introduced an idea that was liberating and open-minded, that stepped away from the original policy of God. And what did classical liberalism result in? Death.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. So now how did the devil do this? How did he do it? He did it by accusing God. Adam and Eve stood before absolute truth. They had God right there. There is no truth higher than that. And even the devil was able to come in and get them to be blurred from truth by one simple thing: an accusation. And that is how the Democrats work to this very day. They are of their father, the devil, and the sins of their father they will do. How do they keep this going? By constantly accusing.
Right.
Because that's what Satan's name means.
Have you ever listened to any of Jordan Peterson's analysis when he's looking at scriptures, but he looks at them in the broader category? So you can look at them from a person who's not of the not a faithful person, but the whole overarching story that we're seeing, and that's what you're talking about here. The idea that his value of it is even if you're not faithful, you can look at it and say you can learn from this because it's human nature. I've taught him, Western civilization, and when I can talk about about the Bible. I mean, I've read the Bible. I mean, any historian worth their salt has to have read the Bible. I've read the Bible. I've read the Quran. I've read the Talmud. You have to know what you're dealing with. But he's trying to poach an audience who isn't of the faithful, who are people as a matter of faith. He's poaching it in the idea of the overstory arc. And I'd agree with you that the concept is exactly the same. That that the way to bring people into your thinking is to accuse the one, make the other side to be wrong and even evil and oppressive, and I therefore bring you. I am here to liberate you, and the only thing that's going to cost you is either your immortality in that case, or your soul, or your freedom in dealing with the Democrats in the modern world.
That's it. It's the oldest trick in the book. How do you get somebody to trust you? By getting them to distrust somebody else?
Exactly. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, so if I make them the enemy, you have to ally with me. I mean, for goodness sakes, how do you get feminists supporting Islamic groups when Islam still, according to the Juras, teaches that women are not of the same value as men? I mean, the insanity of that. Talk about the enemy of my enemy argument.
There's power in victimhood.
Exactly.
I know it's oxymoronic, man. It doesn't seem to make sense, but these people feel empowered by victimhood. That's how Islam is being able to spread the way that it does, because they promote victimhood. And that is taught to them in their scriptures. Here it is right here. When Adam was made, he was given this authority enough to where God told Iblis, the devil figure, to kowtow or bow down before Adam.
I just let people know, anybody listening, you're talking about what the Quran says here, and so I recognize.
About Quran. That's right. He told Iblis was instructed to bow down before Adam, and Iblis said, "Why should I have to bow down before Adam? He's made of clay, and I'm made of fire." Right there, you have sympathy for the devil, because you can relate. It's not fair. The devil is being made a victim. And that's what
Boy, that's a strange concept when you think it is true. But you're right. I mean, when you embrace it in that way, it comes right out into the head on that matter. I was just, by the way, Zoe, I was going to let you know something you might find interesting. You'd mentioned Walter Williams. We talked about him earlier. We have him as a guest on the 4th of December.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you got to say Walter E. Williams.
Yeah, Walter E. Williams. I know, to get in there, he puts his E in there. Yeah, I downloaded his certificate of amnesty that he gives for people of European descent. I thought that you ever seen that?
No.
He has it on his website. It's a certificate that forgives white people for slavery, and the end of it, now when you're dealing with black people, stop being such a damn fool around. It's hilarious. Yeah, we have him on in the beginning of December. So you want to tune in for that one.
In your opinion, how do you think people aren't comprehending what's going on with the left, from the history of the Democratic Party to the pulling the wool over the eyes today? We've been hounding and whining and complaining for years that we need someone that's not connected, that's not a career politician, and then we get one that's brave enough to stand up and say, hey, that's BS. Hey, black community, you're not doing too good right now, but hey, give me a chance and let me. Oh, you're a racist for saying that. And we've asked for this, and now we got it, and people are still not happy.
Oh, man, it's frustrating, ain't it? Okay, for conservatives have to be, they got to be consistent on what it is that they're saying, because we get caught up in the chant of government is not the answer, government is the problem, and over and over again, government is the problem, yet we're always looking to a politician to solve our problem.
Right.
Conservatives, it's like it's almost like anytime a conservative says something halfway intelligent, you got other conservatives say you should run for office. It's like, dude, no. That's not the answer.
It's Johnny and the Professor, where we talk politics, pop culture, and paparazzi. We'll talk more with Zoe coming up on Johnny and the Professor.
You're listening to Johnny and the Professor. Politics.
This is actually what makes this whole thing so comical.
Pop culture.
This is something that they're going to be prioritizing, and that is diversity. Now, this is stupid.
Common sense in senseless times. This is Johnny and the Professor. Common sense in senseless times.
There's a rumor floating around that Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker is heading back for reshoots. Now, yes, reshoots are a normal part of the filmmaking process, but in terms of the recent batch of Star Wars films, late in the game reshoots usually spell disaster.
They are reiterating this idiotic notion, which is unfortunately put out there by professors and blue check mark leftists in public school systems, in which you've limited people's individuality, you've limited people's ability to relate to other individuals, to their color, their race, their gender, ethnic background, and so forth, which is bullcrap.
Contact the show at jpshowfm@gmail.com.
It's Johnny and the Professor.
Common sense for senseless times.
Hey, what's up? Welcome to the Zoloft. Man, I saw something else on Fox News the other day that got me irritated. Watch.
In America, we see this creeping radicalism where homeless people are literally taking over neighborhoods, sleeping on people's private property as well. And California is in a shambles.
There's nothing radical about this. This is not due to radical policies. This is the result of policies of constitutional rebellion. And rebels against the Constitution is who the Democrats have always been. And when you rebel against the U.S. Constitution, you invite poverty, oppression, and murder. Oh, and doo-doo on the sidewalk. I'm like the only conservative in new media who can include the word doo-doo and still make an intelligent sound of argument. Aren't you lucky I'm on your side? The thing I really wanted to focus in on is this crackheaded idea that somehow this is a result of capitalism. And conservatives are just as much at fault as anybody for the stigma that's been placed on capitalism. Because conservatives promote capitalism as if it's all about making money. Capitalism is not defined by how much money you make. It's defined by what the state doesn't have the power to take. But conservatives promote capitalism with the focus on making money. And people receive that as capitalist Republicans valuing profits over people. Even though it's always been the Democrats who have shown that they value profits over people. Y'all might remember that thing that Democrats always try to throw up in our face called slavery. That thing that Democrats fought to keep legal. Why? Because they valued profits over people. You're not really human, and I'm gonna make money off of you. And as it is today, we see that Democrats value profits over prenatal kids. And since Democrats are making it legal to kill postnatal kids, you know that time when you Democrats insisted that that's when a kid is human, now a viable person with rights? Well, you're the ones making it legal to kill them now. So now we can say with even more certainty, as we always have, that Democrats value profits over people.
It's not politics that makes America great. It's people being free to use their God-given services, God-given talents to be of good service and be of good neighbors to each other. That's what makes America great. So, but for conservatives, they have to understand that I get it. You want this political representation, but your political representation is only going to be as solid as your cultural representation, and conservatives really don't have any.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't really, it's like we talk about supply and demand, but we're not demanding cultural representation, and we're not really supplying it. It's liberals who are taking full advantage of doing that. Everything that they believe is promoted in the culture. Conservatives think that, well, they're not going to go, they're not going to go for some old white guy and stuff like that. It's like, no, that's not true. That's not true at all. If that were true, Bernie Sanders wouldn't have a chance.
Right.
Bernie Sanders is a grumpy old man, but what he represents in the culture, his ideals, that have been pumped in, that have inundated the culture for years. That's what they're ready to accept.
Right.
And also, and don't forget that accusation thing to see Republicans racist and sexist and homophobic. That's just been pumped in the culture. That way, when you have a politician step up and say that, hey, Republicans are a bunch of racists, and then that's how this goes out in the culture. Trump may have won. We got our political victory, but you might notice that the culture's going crazy.
Well, part of the reason they're going crazy is I think there's huge issues that are going to be coming on right now with some of the investigations. I think the reports that are going to be coming out from the Secretary General and the like. I think a lot of these are this isn't an impeachment. This is a attempted coup.
Coup d'etat, yeah.
Exactly. But I was wondering, you mentioned earlier, because I was thinking, we want to get a little more pop culture in this. We've had the philosophical elements and the historical elements and everything, and I'd love, we could talk for, I think you and I could talk for hours. But I was thinking, you mentioned that you're wanting to do some like sci-fi productions and stuff. So, So what do you think of Hollywood's current, how they're handling sci-fi and the movies going on in Hollywood? Star Wars, things like that, Star Trek. You have opinions?
They are making full use of using sci-fi. A lot of people dig sci-fi, and once again, this is imagination land, and they're using that to promote their social narratives. Oh man, what they did with I stopped watching was Star Trek: The New Generation. I mean, I know that was a long time ago. The New Generation is old now, but man, I remember them promoting their social narratives, and I'm like, oh my goodness, there's. And this was like even before I really locked on to. I think I really, I locked on to conservatism as well. I've been long before I became a Christian. But even something just watching it, I was like, man, there's something. I don't know what it is, man, but there's just something not right. There's just something not right. And so for myself, I'm like, you know what? I don't want to just sit here and curse the darkness, man. Let's light a candle. Let's apply something different. These people aren't going to stop doing what they're doing, and they got the freedom to do it. I ain't trying to challenge. I ain't trying to take that away from them. But, we try to, we talk about what's going on in the culture, whether it's sci-fi or music, whichever. Don't complain about it. Compete with it. Let's supply something different. We got to supply something else to capture people's interest instead of trying to silence them, because you ain't.
Right.
You can't. So I'm a sci-fi fan. I may not be as much of a sci-fi enthusiast and follow all the lores and stuff like that. But I dig Star Wars. Star Trek, Star Wars. Like what they're doing with Star Wars. Disney's got a hold of it, and where Disney's gonna try to take it.
Well, they've pretty much taken it that way already. The Last Jedi was such a bunch of PC nonsense.
Yeah, so. And like I said, the only thing that can be done about it is you got to promote something else in the culture. At some point, maybe the light will go on with people, and they'll be like, you know what, Star Wars is cool and everything, but I don't need that stuff that they're trying to throw into it. I don't need that. I'll go to this, and I think I can get something more fulfilling.
You can have a show. I mean, we'll use Star Trek as an analogy. You can have a show that will challenge the social norms of the day. Trek Classic. We're talking Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock now. They dealt with issues of racism. They dealt with issues of what rights of women. They dealt with things that were significant in society, but they didn't have to beat you over the head with it. It just became part of their ideas of that you do. The Federation of Jim Kirk. You go watch that, and there's one of Captain Kirk's famous lines back then is that we don't need many gods, we find the one just to be fine. Paraphrasing. So the idea, Trek had the ideas of moving the social norms and embracing the day without actually having to beat you over the head with this stupid nonsense that they're trying to put out today. And again, I agree with you. You need to take them on the field of dreams. You need to take them on in the place, and let's just not have to. Maybe we can just have a movie about superheroes or about sci-fi stuff, and not have to worry about the actual percentages of do we have to have so many women and so many transsexuals and so many this and so many that.
Right.
Yeah. You know who else was a master of writing stuff like this, man, for his day? Was Rod Serling.
Oh, man, Serling, Twilight Zone, yeah.
My favorite was the Obsolete Man.
Oh, I remember that.
That was deep, man. I don't know if you guys have seen that one.
I know, I've seen that in Twilight Zone.
You seen that one?
Oh yeah.
The Obsolete Man.
Yes.
That was heavy. And it's like Rob, man, you almost went profit on that one, bro. And it's stuff like that, man. And one of the things that I was trying to do is that I was trying to do a crowdfunder campaign to make this sci-fi. I wanted to make a sci-fi store for all the Star Wars nerds because I know there's a whole lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the thing that they've been looking for because I think in UK, in Europe or something like that, they even made Jedi a religion over there. And I know that they love to have their lightsaber battles and stuff like that. And there's a big market for them. So I was like, you know what they're missing? They're missing they're missing the sci-fi sword replica that has the auto extension feature and the auto retraction feature. That's what they're missing.
Right.
You know, they don't want this, you know, basically the stick that kind of, I mean, they're having a whole lot of fun with it. They're doing it. Like I said, they have competitions. It's a big thing in their culture. You know, they've got basically this long glow rod, you know, this thing that you screw in and stuff like that. It's like, Jedi ain't got time for that. Burn the hand off doing something like that. Well, the thing I made was just like the movie experience. Is you take up the handle, press a button, it auto extends the blade, just like it does in the movie. You hit the button, it auto retracts it, just like it does in the movie. I made one. And I tried to do a crowdfunder campaign, knowing that people would want this, and it's practically invisible.
Warner Brothers banned the press from the red carpet of the Joker because of all of the leftist BS they've been trying to push with this movie, and they banned the press. Only photographers were allowed on the red carpet.
I'm just considering the nature of how Hollywood makes films, you know, and it wouldn't surprise me if it's got a whole bunch of nudity and sexual content and stuff like that.
Right.
And this you want to talk about the hypocrisy of Hollywood, man. You know, with their whole Me Too movement and standing up for women and stuff like that. It's like almost every time you guys make a movie, you objectify women on there. You act like it's like you can't make a good movie unless there's like this obligatory nude scene in it. It's like, look, if your movie is already good, you don't need that. Why are you objectifying this woman? And or like, you know, in these movies, like slasher movies and stuff like that these liberals be making and stuff, you guys show that you have a more judgmental mentality of women than anybody that you accuse. You take the promiscuous young lady and you have this slasher come in. It's like you guys are the ones who are judgmental of these women. You know, and you're totally misogynistic and you're objectifying them.
It is strange that the casting couch is Hollywood, and Hollywood's has been liberal as long as I can remember, and yet for somehow, you know, we as more conservative individuals, we're of course the misogynists. We're the ones who don't understand. You know, I've only been married for 36 years to the same woman, so I guess, you know, I obviously don't know anything about women at all, right? Anything at this point you want to let people know you're doing projects, you know, tell them about your, you know, website, your bands, get all that information out so people can find you if they need to.
All right, so thank you. Well, my website is bronzeserpentmedia.com, and there, you know, folks can keep up with my commentaries from the Zoloft, which I'm trying to do more regularly. That's my place for chuckle therapy for people who need it with the stuff that's getting them down and what's going on in our cultural and political discourse today. Then, like I said, there's my my online Bible study, the Zopium Den, House of the Anti-Fuddy-Duddy Bible Study. So I'm trying to, you know, I want to get the
now say that 3 times fast. That'd be cool to see. Anyway, anyway, go on. I'm sorry.
And then there's you know, my parody series that I'm trying to, you know, I'm really trying to revamp and get that going. Sinisterbia. You know, it's like I said, it's kind of like the Twilight Zone meets Tales of the Dark Side. You know, it's a parody of the absurdities that the left is trying to drag us into. And of course, there's my band, 20 Pound Sledge. We just dropped our new album, Electric Exodus. So, you know, it's... You know,
that's a good piece, by the way. I saw that. You sent that to us. That's a good song. I really liked that one.
Thank you. That's right, man. We want to rock the gospel. It's you know, people like to rock out. Help us get it out there. And yeah, that's and then there's my books. A Solid Right Cross is my latest book. You know, folks need that culture war, you know, coaching. And this book right here, as the title says, it's conservative counterpunching and biblical boxing against leftist loons and godless goons.
Don't sugarcoat it, Zoe. Give it to us straight. Do you think the left is crazy?
Just a little, yeah.
Just a little, yeah.
Cray all day.
I think that's why they don't like that. They're complaining about the Joker movie because he's just not crazy enough for them, probably. You've been a pleasure having you as a guest.
Oh man, you guys, it's been a party, man. Thank you guys so much for having me on.
Okay, well we'll do this again sometime.
Okie dokie.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Right, you got it. Thank you.
So he's a pastor.
Well, a pastor, sort of a lay pastor, I know for sure. He does definitely come out and give his biblical opinions directly on his YouTube videos.
Okay. Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan Markle are suing the publisher of Britain's Mail, claiming they printed a private letter she wrote. The lawsuit alleges they used the letter as part of a campaign to publish false and derogatory stories about the royal couple. No way. The press, the media, doing something like this? No way.
Well, the answer is, how did they get? Why are you suing the press? Who got the letter? Did
I don't
somebody
know.
steal it? I mean, how can it's like blaming the postman because someone got a hold of your mail? You didn't like throw it in the trash afterwards or something?
Well, I don't know how they got the letter. I mean, maybe it was a private letter that was stolen, for all we know. But Prince Harry wrote that his deepest fear is history repeating itself, saying, "I've seen what happens when someone I love is commoditized to the point that they're no longer treated or seen as a real person. I lost my mother, and now I watch my wife falling victim to the same powerful forces." And they say if they get any damages, they'll donate it to an anti-bullying charity.
I'm not much of an Anglophile. I don't really, the royals in Britain they were much more interesting when they could, chop people's heads off and things like that back in history.
Yeah.
But the modern one, this Meghan Markle, I mean, this is all a bunch of, they're celebrities. I mean, you're paid an inordinate amount of money to walk around and wave and get to live in palaces and get titles. Live with the fact that you're going to have to be under public scrutiny.
Okay.
Public people generally don't. I mean, it's Sharon Stone, flashing her crotch in Basic Instinct, and then complaining that no one would take her seriously after she flashed her crotch. I mean, come on, if you're gonna be in show business, and they are in show business, because other than the Queen, they have the Queen has some powers still. I mean, for example, she can close down the Parliament. She can shut them down and make them go on recess.
Wow. That's
an issue that's going right now having to do with Brexit. That they're requesting the Queen actually do that so they can get the Brexit done completely. And the Queen has to declare war. There's other powers that they have, but these princes and these princesses and all that, they're just in the entertainment business.
Yeah. So quit whining.
Quit whining. Take it like a princess.
Did you ever watch Jersey Shore?
No, sorry, I can't get you. That's a dead end one for me. I'm not a big TV guy.
Well, Jersey Shore and Double Shot Love cohorts Pauly D and Vinny, they will team up in yet another new series for MTV, tentatively titled DJ Pauly D and Vinny's Vegas Pool Party. They're just trying to hold on to that 15 minutes,
Well, I mean, it's
20
okay
minutes
when
later.
You're young. How old are these guys getting to be now?
Yeah, they're up there.
So eventually it's going to have to be Vinny and his walker and, the polygrip program or something. I mean, come on, there comes a point, maybe you should move on to something else once you get to be a certain age.
New Jimi Hendrix box set called Songs for Groovy Children, the Fillmore East Concerts. That's going to be out November 22nd. It's a 5 CD, 8 LP set. Marked the debut of Hendrix and his backing group, Band of Gypsies. They played the Fillmore East in New York City on New Year's Eve 1969 and then New Year's Day 1970. Were you alive in 69?
Yes.
What were you doing in 69?
Being about 11 or 12 years old.
Yeah? You in California?
Yes.
Boo. Hiss. California.
That was when that'd be 6th grade. We just moved to a new house. I like Hendrix's work. I'm not sure he's as great as people think he is. I don't want to cause Hendrix people to come after me.
Yeah.
He had the one good. He made the same career move that Elvis did. Death is a good thing to make your career more immortal. That, of course, most rock stars are that way. We won't get into that. But I mean, sometimes when I listen to his playing, I've seen people who are guitarists that are just phenomenally better than a lot of these. I mean, sometimes they're in bands you don't even know, or not even in rock bands.
Right.
I mean, there's some country and western. Some of the country and western guitarists are absolutely amazing. The Roy Clarks and people like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's, because it looks like you should be able to translate back and forth in rock. Of course, a lot of people, like you said, it's like Janis Joplin. Everyone likes Janis Joplin. She always bored me, but that's just me.
Yeah. Well,
Well, I'm sorry. Am I insulting the rock and roll people? That we can lose all our rock listeners?
Nobody's listening.
Well, I'm listening.
Oh, I was going to ask you about this since you YouTube quite a bit. You ever watch the Cobra Kai TV series?
I haven't watched the series itself, but I have watched some excerpts of it.
That is a really good show.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Didn't one of the main actors, though, pass away recently?
I don't think so. I think maybe one of the supporting actors did, because I know they did an episode, spoiler alert. It's about Daniel LaRusso and then Johnny, right, kind of like their life after everything.
It's a sequel to the Karate Kid movies.
Right, and they're just, they have kids, and they go through everyday, kind of issues. Daniel LaRusso's a car salesman now, and he has kids, and he wants to start his dojo back up. And then Johnny, he's kind of fell on hard times. He had a pretty rough life, but they go through these flashbacks when he was a little kid, and you kind of learn why he turned out the way he did. And of course, it has to do with family, but he's not really a bad guy. He's just, he does what he can, and he wants to start his Cobra Kai dojo, and so they're kind of like back to the battling
conflict of it. But what you're establishing, and I can right off, I'm listening to it, you're giving me background on the villain character to make him a little more sympathetic,
because he is, the way they've portrayed him, they've given some history as to why he was a big fat jerk. But then even going back to instances and scenes in the Karate Kid where things were misinterpreted, to where you think, God, that Johnny guy is a big jerk. It's like, oh, that's what happened there. And it's just it's like good and evil. It's all a matter of perception, I guess, right? I like Johnny's character because they explain a lot more, and they just show that he's just human. We're all human.
Everybody's human. It's a matter of what you deal with it. But in the Karate Kid, when you watch his character, when he's told, when they're people in the dojo sweep the leg and things like that,
right?
They didn't want to do it. There were limits on how far they wanted to go. You could tell it was the guy who was in charge of the dojo, who was actually,
And he comes back now after Johnny gets his dojo going, and he gets students, right? And he's doing the what was their motto? Strike first, strike hard, no mercy. He's still teaching that, but he's taken out the cheat thing, the fight dirty thing, like his old. But then his old sensei comes back and tries to kind of strong arm himself in, so he kind of feels sorry for his old sensei. So he lets him kind of tag along, but then he kind of like takes over the dojo and starts misguiding these kids. That goes against what Johnny was trying to teach. He's trying to save these kids, and some are gay, some are not, some are nerds, some are jocks. He's trying to like harness everything good from each one of these kids that were kind of like outcasts, and play on their strengths and just teach them to be able to take a punch, but give a punch, right? And then
toughen them up.
Then LaRusso, he's teaching like his daughter and actually Johnny's son, Johnny's estranged son, Daniel LaRusso is training, and he's teaching him the Miyagi-Do way of doing things, the inner peace, and you don't go starting trouble, and that whole kind of philosophy. And then things just get so mixed up, like assumptions and things like that, to where it just creates conflict. It's just a really fun show.
Miyagi's character fought in World War II. He was part of one of the Nissan units they were talking about, and Nisa units, and he ended up, which meant he killed men, and he used his martial arts to kill men in the war. Killed probably Italians and Germans, because they always did that. They always moved them into the European theater. And but it doesn't change the fact that is any less of his idea of being peaceful? But martial art is martial. It is a fighting art. It ultimately has to be used to defend and protect yourself. So who's right in it? It depends on how you want to live your life in general and what you're trying to get out of it.
So that'll do it for this episode of Johnny and the Professor. You want to let them know where they could find us?
Well, of course, you can find us at jpshowfm@gmail.com. If you have any comments or questions or complaints or anything, send them there. We will definitely, we check them every day. We have our YouTube channel, which is Johnny and the Professor. Just go search on YouTube. I have my personal YouTube channel, which is called Arena of History. And I do articles for the Senior Sunset Times. Have one coming out just in a few days.
Johnny and the Professor, politics.
It's the furthest extension of political correctness. And when you say something, that it's not just me disagreeing with you, it is me destroying your identity as a human being in a way that is akin to violence.
Pop culture.
For the crimes that you have committed, for the crimes against Luke Skywalker, for the crimes against Han Solo, for the crimes against Princess Leia, for the crimes against George Lucas.
This is Johnny and the Professor, common sense in senseless times. Contact the show at jpshowfm@gmail.com.